It was no secret that Chloe Vanderbilt, the queen of New York's elite circle, and I were frenemies. She hated me down to her very bones. Yet, as fate would have it, that year we were the only two suitable candidates left for an arranged marriage within our circle. Chloe declared she would rather die than marry me. Suddenly, I was intrigued. In that case, I'm definitely marrying you. You can go ahead and die. On our wedding day, Chloe released dozens of ducks to humiliate me. With a straight face, I picked up a duck and called it my wife. Chloe instantly lost her playful mood, sneering at me. You'll regret this. 3 years into our marriage, I watched Chloe with a pretty boy for the 99th time. It was only then that I truly understood what she meant by regret. After an overnight flight, I stared, my face a mask of disgust, at the clothes strewn all over the floor. A sickening scent filled the air, making my stomach churn. Right then, Chloe was nestled in another man's arms, the wicked glint in her eyes more intense than ever. What do you think? He's young, handsome, and 100 times better in bed than you are. Ethan, if I'm not mistaken, this makes 99 times, doesn't it? And you still won't agree to a divorce. I numbly rubbed my stomach, choosing not to retaliate against her cruelty. I just said coldly, get dressed. We need to talk. Chloe scoffed at my retreating back. Talk about what? What could I possibly have to talk about with you? I stopped in my tracks but didn't turn around. About the divorce. Chloe's mouth fell open in surprise. I had been in the study for less than 3 minutes when Chloe, fully dressed, pushed the door open. It was obvious how desperate she was to divorce me. Ethan, you're not joking, are you? I could clearly see the contempt in her eyes. But I didn't answer, simply pushing the divorce papers across the desk toward her. Read it over. If there are no issues, you can sign. Chloe picked up the papers suspiciously, her eyes searching mine for a trick. She simply didn't believe I would actually go through with it. After all, the Miller family's fortune was a shadow of its former self. Chloe assumed I would cling to her and her family's wealth for dear life. But when she finished reading the papers, she was utterly stunned. Not only was I not after her money, but I was also voluntarily giving up our marital home. Chloe's brow furrowed. Are you serious? You're not going to agree to this and then run off to the family estate to cause a scene, are you? But my expression remained calm. I'm serious. I won't make a scene. You have my word. Chloe didn't hesitate any longer, quickly signing her name at the bottom. As the last stroke of her pen lifted, a slight smile touched her lips, a massive weight clearly lifted from her shoulders. Now that the papers are signed, let's get to City Hall and file them. I don't want to spend 1 second more of the 30-day cooling-off period with you than I have to. I frowned. Right now? Ah, Inuit. You're going to back out, aren't you? My stomach was twisting in knots, but seeing the mocking look on Chloe's face, I went straight to City Hall with her to file the paperwork. As the clerk handed us the form, they began to explain, if either of you changes your mind within 30 days, how could I possibly regret this? Chloe tossed her pen on the counter, her smile widening. I came out a few moments later and saw Chloe's car was still there. She was parked at the curb and honked at me. Her window was halfway down. Chloe took off her sunglasses, a look of pure relief on her face as she started to mock me. Ethan, they say even one night together means something. We did share a bed after all. Don't worry about finding someone new. I think she'd be perfect for you. Chloe held out a business card, clearly wanting to see me squirm, but she didn't expect me to actually reach out and take it. All right, I'll consider it. I calmly turned and walked away, leaving Chloe frozen in place. Chloe didn't know that the 30-day countdown wasn't just for our divorce. It was also the countdown to my death. I wandered the streets, my hand clutching the death sentence the doctor had just handed me. It meant I only had about 30 days left. This feeling, like being struck by lightning on a clear day, wasn't new to me. The Miller family was in turmoil, and the entire weight of it had fallen on my shoulders. I felt so helpless back then. I called Chloe thinking that even just bickering with her, hearing her argue, would make me feel a little better. But Chloe hung up every time I called. When I kept trying, she got so annoyed that she just turned off her phone. The next time I saw her, she was leading her pretty boy into our bedroom, brazenly sleeping with him in our marital bed. She never saw my desperation. All she saw was a face she found repulsive. She deliberately French kissed him right in front of me. The sight of their passionate kiss, a thin, glistening thread connecting their lips, was a knife to my eyes. I forced myself to stay composed as I fled the room. Practically everyone in Chicago knew that Chloe and I couldn't stand each other. We'd been at each other's throats since we were kids. and almost everyone assumed I hated her just as much as she hated me. I touched the ring on my finger. It was the one Chloe had been forced to give me after we were married. She'd thrown the box so hard it hit me in the face. In the beginning, I hid my feelings well, until the night Chloe forced me to fulfill our marital duties. In a moment of passion, her hand brushed against the ring on my finger. Chloe burst out laughing. "Ethan, don't tell me you actually like me. Is that why you refused to divorce me? If that's the case, you'd better get over it. Not only could I never like you, I actively despise you. There's never hatred without a reason." Chloe disliked me because the Vanderbilt and Miller families had arranged our marriage long ago. And because of that, her first love was forced to leave the country. That night, I lay awake until dawn. My mother died when I was young, so there was no one to teach me how to hold on to someone you love. As a boy, the only way I knew how to get Chloe to notice me was through sharp, sarcastic remarks. The constant buzzing of my phone pulled me from my thoughts. I glanced at the screen. It was Chloe, spamming a group iMessage chat with cash gifts. "What's the occasion? Someone's happy, Miss Vanderbilt." Chloe didn't reply, simply posting a picture of our signed filing for the cooling-off period. That single image was like a bomb, drawing out everyone who had been silently watching from the sidelines. "You're divorced." Ethan actually agreed? "This is the best news. Chloe, you're finally free of that dead weight. You said seeing Ethan's face every day made you sick to your stomach. Well, now you're free. No one to answer to anymore. Doesn't anyone else find this weird? Chloe's been with so many guys, and Ethan put up with all of it. Why would he suddenly give in now? What if he's just messing with you? He could just not show up at the end of the 30 days, and you'd still be stuck." The group chat went silent. A moment later, my phone rang. "Ethan, are you messing with me? When this cooling-off period is over, are you actually going to show up to finalize the divorce?" A faint smile touched my pale face. "What do you want, Chloe?" I could hear her heavy breathing on the other end. If I were standing in front of her right now, I doubt I'd last the month. She's probably kill me on the spot. Before she could say anything, I let out another laugh. "Chloe, I'll give you what you want, but on one condition." She didn't answer, but I didn't care. I continued, "I need you to do 10 things with me. After we've done them, I'll finalize the divorce without a fight. I promise, after that, I will disappear from your life completely." The offer was too tempting for her to refuse. Chloe frowned. 10 is too many. 5. I chuckled softly. "Fine. The first thing, I wanted Chloe to accompany me to a charity gala." When Chloe came to pick me up, her fingers were flying across her phone screen. She didn't even bother to look at me. I didn't mind. I knew nothing good ever came out of her mouth anyway. But the moment she got in the car and actually looked at me, she frowned. "Are you on a diet? You look terrible. Your skin is all sallow." My fingers clenched, but I kept my eyes fixed on the road ahead and didn't reply. As we got out of the car, Chloe grabbed my hand. Seeing my expression falter, she said dismissively, "What's wrong? It's not like we haven't held hands. We've done far more intimate things than this. Why are you acting so shy now?" My cold hand was enveloped in the warmth of her palm. It wasn't the first time she'd held my hand, but it was the first time she had initiated it. Everyone there stared wide-eyed at the sight of us looking so unusually harmonious. The auction started. I saw something I wanted and instinctively raised my paddle, but the man next to me beat me to it. It was a posthumous work by a foreign artist. A lot of people wanted it, and the bids quickly escalated. But in the end, Chloe won it with a high bid. A strange warmth spread through my chest. "Have this painting shipped to the Hayes family in Miami." My hand, which had been reaching out, froze in midair. The painting wasn't for me. A bitter wave of disappointment washed over me, threatening to pull me under. I stood up and headed for the exit. Chloe, frowning, strode after me and grabbed my arm. "It's not over. Where are you going?" I struggled, but couldn't break free from her grip. Chloe was getting impatient. "You're the one who dragged me here. What's your problem now? You're insane." Her calling me insane felt like a stab to the heart. "You're right. I am sick." I wrenched my arm free from her grasp and walked out without looking back. I didn't contact Chloe for a week after that. I moved out of our house. At first, Chloe didn't seem to care, but the thought of the 4 remaining tasks made her antsy. It was as if she believed I'd start clinging to her again if we didn't get them over with. Unable to contain her impatience, Chloe called me. Her call came right after I'd finished a round of radiation therapy. My condition was worsening rapidly, and a deep ache had settled into my bones. "For things left, Ethan, don't try to pull anything. I was silent for a moment before I spoke. I want to go to Aspen. Chloe frowned. Now? Yes, right now. Chloe thought I was a lunatic, but she was so desperate for the divorce, so eager to be rid of me, that she booked a flight to Aspen immediately. I was bundled up from head to toe, and by the time I arrived, Chloe was already pacing impatiently. What took you so long? I offered to pick you up, but you said no, and then you take forever to get here yourself. Listening to her ramble, I just handed her my suitcase. Chloe scoffed but expertly took all of my bags. It was a subconscious gesture, one I doubt she even noticed herself making. As we were about to board, Chloe's phone rang. I stood at the gate, our eyes meeting across the distance. Chloe gripped her phone, her body tensing. Sorry, Ethan. I can't go to Aspen with you. With that, she turned and ran out of the airport. Numbly, I pulled out my phone. Sure enough, the top post on my Facebook feed was from Julian Hayes. He hadn't said a word, just posted a picture of a painting, and for that, Chloe had abandoned me and her promise without a second thought. Sir, it's time to board. I snapped out of it, turned away from her retreating figure, and walked in the opposite direction. After I landed in Aspen, I got a text from Chloe. I'll be there in 2 days. You go on ahead. I was surprised. She was coming late, not canceling entirely. It seemed she really was that desperate to be done with me. I didn't wait for her. I found a local guide and joined a tour group. My stamina couldn't keep up with the others, so I spent most of my time resting alone in my room. By the time Chloe arrived, I had already packed my bags and was about to leave. Ethan, I dropped everything to fly out here and indulge your whims, just for you to mess with me? She was so angry she kicked my suitcase over. Seeing my clothes spill onto the floor, I let out a bitter laugh. Are you really here for me? Isn't Julian Hayes staying right next door? Chloe's face stiffened, and she said, a little defensively, Julian is just here to paint. Stop trying to pick a fight with him. My fingers clenched. I decided not to say anything more and just bent down to pick up my clothes. Just then, Julian appeared at the doorway. Am I interrupting something? The anger on Chloe's face vanished instantly, replaced by a look of gentle concern. Julian, I thought you weren't feeling well. Why are you out of bed? Well, I can't stay in bed forever. What were you and Mr. Miller talking about? It sounded a little loud, so I thought I'd check. Hearing this, Chloe finally glanced back at me. It's nothing. Are you hungry? I'll get you something to eat. Julian nodded sheepishly. Chloe was about to leave, but she stopped and turned to me impatiently. And you? What do you want? I finished packing the last of my clothes. Even that small amount of effort left me drenched in sweat. I heard the shift in her tone, the stark difference in how she spoke to me. I'm fine, I said quietly. When I refused, her expression soured. Suit yourself. Starve for all I care. You look like a ghost already. The door closed, leaving just Julian and me in the room. This wasn't the first time I'd met him. The Hayes family was new money from Miami, so of course the Vanderbilts looked down on them. And Julian, proud as he was, felt the Vanderbilts were snobs. He'd left in a huff, determined to make a name for himself abroad. Now he was back, tail between his legs, and the first thing he did was get back in touch with his old flame. As an outsider, the whole situation seemed pathetic to me. With Chloe gone, Julian dropped the act. Mr. Miller. Long time no see. He kicked over the suitcase I had just spent so long packing. Seeing everything I had just painstakingly organized destroyed so easily, a surge of anger rose in my throat. I knew he was trying to provoke me, but I walked right into it, landing a punch square on his handsome face. When Chloe walked in, she saw Julian's swollen face and tear-filled eyes. The bowl of noodles he was carrying for me crashed to the floor. Without asking for an explanation, she strode forward and slapped me hard across the face. Ethan, that's enough. Julian looked at Chloe, his face a mask of hurt. It's my fault. I accidentally knocked over Mr. Miller's suitcase. I know I'm not welcome here. I'll go. He rushed out of the room, and Chloe immediately moved to follow him. I stopped her. Chloe, the third thing, stay here. Chloe clenched her fists, her eyes burning with rage. I knew what she wanted to say. I took a ragged breath, feeling all the strength drain from my body as I sank to the floor. I rubbed my ringing ear and started to refold the clothes on the floor. You want this divorce so you can marry Julian, right? After this, there are only 2 things left. Are you going to throw it all away now? To be honest, I'm not satisfied with how you've handled the first 2. Unless you've changed your mind about divorcing me? I looked up at her and saw her beautiful eyes fill with scorn. Ethan, self-awareness is a virtue, one you clearly lack. Fine, I'll do this third thing, but you'd better remember, the Miller family can't protect you anymore. If you ever lay a hand on Julian again, I will tear you limb from limb. I buried my head in my hands and laughed bitterly. Anyone can make threats. Back when our fights were at their worst, she was never a match for me. Besides, I'd soon be gone just like she wanted. She wouldn't have to do a thing. Chloe called Julian, calmed him down, and arranged for him to fly back home early. Watching her protect him so carefully made my heart ache with a bitter jealousy. So, Chloe knew how to love someone. She just didn't love me. When Chloe returned, I still hadn't finished packing. She couldn't watch anymore, pulling me to my feet and starting to pack the suitcase herself. You're useless. It's just a few things and you've been at it for ages. Anyone would think you were on your deathbed. You're so weak. I suddenly felt the urge to tease her. You're right. I am dying. What do you think? When I'm dead, will you regret treating me this way? Chloe froze for a second, then looked up, her face dripping with sarcasm. Regret? You wish. If you died, I'd throw a party for 3 days straight and invite the entire city of Chicago to celebrate. I laughed so hard tears streamed down my face, clutching my stomach. Chloe, you have a vicious tongue. We are, after all, husband and wife. I didn't stay long. I could feel my body reaching its limit. Back in Chicago, I was bedridden for another week. After each radiation treatment, my hair fell out in noticeable clumps. When Chloe called to press me about the last 2 items on the list, I hid in the bathroom and cried all afternoon. After I was done crying, I disguised myself and went to a shop to buy a wig. Did you cut your hair? I didn't answer, just got into her car. Chloe frowned, instinctively reaching out to touch my hair, but I pulled away. We're in a hurry. Are we going or not? Chloe got in the car. Less than 7 days left, she reminded me. You need to hurry up and decide on the last 2 things. I didn't answer, keeping my gaze fixed out the window. I'd always been too busy fighting with Chloe, busy trying to make her see me, that I'd never noticed how beautiful Chicago was. I used to think that if I could just reach her level, we could stand together and admire the same view. But the truth is, when she doesn't love you, she can be standing right next to you and still not see you at all. And for the one she does love, she's willing to bow her proud head. The 4th thing, take me to an amusement park. How childish, she said, giving me a disdainful look. I lowered my eyes. I'd seen pictures of her at an amusement park with Julian, patiently taking photos with him. I wasn't trying to compete with him. Going to an amusement park with Chloe was a childhood dream of mine. This 4th thing was for the little boy I used to be. She was physically with me, but her mind was a million miles away. Her eyes were glued to her phone. I had to ask her 4 or 5 times to take a picture before she finally looked up from the screen. As night fell, she urged me to leave 3 times, but I ignored her. Not until the distant Ferris wheel lit up. I pointed to it, my eyes full of hope. Just ride that with me, and then we'll go. Seeing the light in my eyes, Chloe froze. After a moment, she pursed her lips. Ethan, even if we go to the very top of that Ferris wheel, I will never fall in love with you. The seconds ticked by. My eyes started to sting. I quickly turned my head away. What are you talking about? I've just never been on one before. The ringing of her phone shattered the silence. I couldn't hear what Julian was saying, but he sounded frantic. After she hung up, Chloe rushed off again, this time without so much as an apology. As the Ferris wheel reached the top, I looked down at the city lights below, and tears streamed down my face. Happy birthday, Ethan. The day after, I was rushed to the hospital with a high fever. I was vaguely aware of the beeping of the machines around me, but it sounded distant. In the haze, I thought I saw Chloe standing over me. She looked at my half-dead state without a shred of pity in her eyes. A cruel smile played on her lips as she laughed. You deserve this. Karma's a bitch. You should just die already, then I won't have to do that last stupid thing on your list. In my dream, I was seething with anger, my heart aching with a sour bitterness. I forced my eyes open, but the person I wanted to see wasn't there. Thank God you're finally awake. Do you know how long you've been out? I've always been proud, and in our circle, people are ruthless in their pursuit of fame and fortune. With the Miller family's decline and Chloe's open hostility towards me, everyone knew where they stood. Everyone knew that if the Millers fell, Chloe would be the first in line to gloat. So they had all picked their side long ago, drawing a clear line between them and me. The only person by my side now, the only one I could talk to, was the male nurse who had been looking after me. Hearing his words, I looked at him in a panic. What's the date? Leo Scott heard my question and assumed I was distressed about how little time I had left. He masked his own emotions and began to speak gently. It's the 28th, Ethan, you Where's my wig? I cut him off. Leo paused for a second. It's here. I put it away for you. My fingers trembled slightly as I took the wig from his hand. I kept my eyes downcast, hiding my thoughts. Leo, while I was unconscious, did anyone come to see me? I asked cautiously, my fingers tightening around the wig. Leo's heart ached for me, but he couldn't bring himself to lie. Ethan, Chloe never came. He quickly turned away to wipe the tears from his eyes. She didn't just not come. She wouldn't even listen when I called and tried to tell her. Is this a joke? Ethan Miller in a coma? Please, I'm busy. I don't have time for his games. I'll do the last thing on the list and that's it. Tell him to give it a rest and stop making things up for attention. I tried calling Chloe, but after she hung up on me 3 times in a row, I lost my patience. I sent her a text, and sure enough, my phone was ringing less than 2 minutes later. Her voice was heavy with exhaustion. Julian's sick. I have to stay with him. We'll do the last thing in a couple of days. She was about to hang up, but I quickly said, fine. The moment I agreed, she sneered. It's just a couple of days. It's not like I'm backing out. Don't push it, Ethan. A lump formed in my throat, and I had to force back the bitterness that rose in my chest. I forced a light-hearted tone, laughing even though every inch of my body was screaming in pain. Chloe, there's only one thing left. Then you'll be free. Unless you're having second thoughts? Want to stay married after all? I'm fine with that, you know? She could never resist rising to the bait when I said things like that. It worked like a charm every time. After she hung up, I clutched my phone and laughed. I laughed until the bitter taste of my own tears filled my mouth, and my heart felt like it was being torn apart. I was terrified she would find out the truth, terrified of facing her ridicule in my final days. So, before she arrived, I had Leo put some makeup on me to hide how sick I was. The walk downstairs should have taken 5 minutes. Took me almost 20. You're so slow. What's the last thing? Spit it out. Seeing the impatience on her face, I took my time. I settled into the passenger seat and buckled my seatbelt. Only then did I turn to look at her. It's simple. Make me lunch. Chloe stared at me in disbelief. Just lunch. I nodded. Yes, just lunch. Her suspicious eyes scanned me up and down. For the first 4 tasks, I had been deliberately difficult. For this final one, she must have expected me to ask for the impossible. She never imagined I would just ask for a home-cooked meal. She glanced at the time, sent a few texts, and then drove to the grocery store. It was the first time Chloe and I had ever gone grocery shopping together, the first time we'd ever felt like a normal couple. She pushed the cart while I told her what to get. I stood next to her at the checkout. A child came running past and was about to crash into me, but Chloe instinctively pulled me behind her. Her hand gripped mine tightly. I looked down at our intertwined hands, my eyes blurring with tears. It was the second time she had ever taken my hand willingly. But before I could savor the warmth of her touch, she abruptly let go. I followed Chloe back to our house. We didn't have many memories in that house. She had been forced to marry me, and she'd spent our entire marriage rebelling against it. The 99 affairs were just the tip of the iceberg. Chloe changed her shoes and went into the kitchen. The strength I had been forcing myself to maintain finally gave out the moment she was out of sight, and I collapsed onto the floor. By the time she came out, I had put my mask back on, watching with feigned indifference as she brought out the food. I never knew she could cook. To think that a woman so proud, so arrogant, would learn to cook for a man. She must really love Julian. This is a lot of food. Can the 2 of us even finish it all? I frowned as she kept bringing out more and more dishes. In my condition, I couldn't possibly eat this much. A few bites and she would know something was wrong. Chloe set down the last dish, her expression serene. Who said it was just for the 2 of us? I stared at her, stunned. Before I could process her words, the doorbell rang. A moment later, a bright smile spread across Chloe's face as she went to open the door. Chloe, am I late? My students wouldn't stop asking questions after class. Julian walked in and, with practiced ease, pulled a pair of men's slippers from the shoe cabinet. I remembered those slippers. I'd bought them for myself shortly before I moved out, but never got the chance to wear them. Seeing how at home Julian was here now sent a shiver down my spine. Not at all, you're just in time. Go wash up, dinner's ready. The tenderness in Chloe's voice was like a needle in my ear. A smile played on Julian's lips as he walked to the table. Mr. Miller, sorry I'm late. I didn't answer, not that he waited for one. He went straight to his seat. Chloe, you're the best. You even set out my plate and silverware for me. I know you're a bit of a germaphobe, so I washed them several times, just for you. Julian looked at her adoringly. So what's my reward? Chloe smiled. I just want you to eat well. You've been working so hard, and you were so sick. You've lost weight. I watched them in silence, the easy back and forth between them making my long dead heart ache with a familiar pain. I couldn't stop myself from interrupting. Chloe, is this how you fulfill the last task? I felt like a porcupine, bristling with anger. As she looked up at me, she seemed to notice for the first time just how thin I'd become. A flicker of guilt crossed her face, but she quickly replaced it with indignation. I made all this and you can't eat it all anyway. Julian was just sick. I've been taking care of him. You're the one who insisted we do this today. I couldn't just abandon him. Julian sat across from me, a smug look in his eyes that seemed to mock my foolishness. Suddenly, I felt exhausted. All the fight went out of me. It was as if the last bit of strength I'd been holding on to had been punched out of me. I was in so much pain. It wasn't just my heart. Every bone in my body ached with an intensity that was unbearable. I hung my head, feeling utterly depleted. The next moment, I forced myself to my feet, my eyes still fixed on the floor. Chloe, I should never have expected anything from you. My voice was so quiet it was barely a whisper, like the sound of a pin dropping. Seeing me about to leave, Chloe took a small step forward, but Julian moved faster. He reached out to grab me, and in the process, knocked my wig askew. In an instant, he had pulled it clean off my head. Chloe gasped, Ethan, your hair. What happened to your hair? My back was to her, my hands shaking uncontrollably. My mind went blank. His action felt like he had ripped away my last shred of dignity. Just as I was about to give up and tell her everything, Julian picked up the wig from the floor. He looked at me, his face grave, his tone accusatory. Mr. Miller, I can't believe you'd go so far as to shave your head just to keep Chloe. What's next after these 5 things are done? Are you going to threaten to become a monk? Hearing this, the shock in Chloe's eyes was quickly replaced by something else. She looked at me with fury, strode forward, and snatched the wig from Julian's hand. She ripped it apart and threw it in the trash like it was garbage. Ethan, have you no shame? Using this to threaten me? Do you think I'm scared? I'm telling you right now, even if you were to drop dead this very second, I would make sure our marriage was legally over before you hit the ground. Her words made the tears stream down my face. I choked out, Chloe, do you really hate me that much? Her eyes were locked on me, even as Julian's hand found hers. She looked away, suddenly unable to bear the sight of my sallow, gaunt face. Ethan, it's been 3 years. Haven't you figured it out by now? Yes, 3 years. For 3 years, I've tried to warm a block of ice. She never noticed how clean I kept the house, or that I was the one who laid out her clothes for her every morning. We were married for 3 years, but she was always just a guest in our home, leaving me to live alone in the beautiful illusion I'd built for myself. The tears on my face dried, and my expression became calm once more. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, I'll be waiting for you at City Hall. Then I bent down, retrieved the wig from the trash, and walked out of the house for the last time. Chloe watched my frail figure retreat, a strange pang in her chest. Before she could even process the feeling, her feet were moving, following me. Chloe, Julian grabbed her from behind, his eyes wide with disbelief. Where are you going? Chloe snapped out of her daze and frowned. I'm going to check on him. Why would he shave his head? I know Ethan. He once threw a fit because I accidentally pulled out a single strand of his hair. For him to shave it all off, something's not right. Julian's expression darkened. Seeing that she was serious, he suddenly clutched his stomach and doubled over. Chloe stopped in her tracks. Chloe, go on, go after him. Don't worry about me. Chloe looked down at Julian's pained expression and gently helped him up. I'll take you to the hospital first. I didn't get far before I collapsed on the side of the road. A kind stranger took me to the hospital. When I woke up, Leo was there, gently wiping the sweat from my forehead, his face etched with worry. Ethan, are you still in pain? The pain was so intense I could barely breathe. Leo, could you do me a favor and buy me a bus ticket? In your condition, where are you trying to go? I slowly reached out and wiped a tear from his cheek. It's always so dreary in Chicago. I was always too busy before. Now that I finally have some time, I want to see some other places. Leo broke down sobbing. Looking at my increasingly jaundiced face, he couldn't bring himself to refuse. I'll go with you. I shook my head. I've been enough of a burden to you already, Leo. I know you're just worried that there'll be no one to bury me when I'm gone. You've finally got your life on track. I've troubled you more than enough. I don't know how I could ever repay you. Hearing this, Leo's tears fell like rain, and he threw his arms around me, sobbing. You idiot, who asked you to repay anything? You just have to live. Why should you let those two get away with it? Julian just up and left, and Chloe got in that car accident trying to chase after him. If you hadn't been there, taking care of her, pretending to be Julian to give her the will to live, the Vanderbilts would have given up on her long ago. Why do you have to be the one to suffer everything? Does anyone even see your pain? Leo, I've already let it go. The appointed time came and went, but Chloe was still at home, dragging her feet. The third time Julian asked, she put down the glass of water she was holding. Oh, is it time already? Julian frowned at her distracted air. Chloe, what's wrong? Don't you want to finalize the divorce? Of course I do, she retorted automatically. I just want to make him wait. I suffered through 3 years of marriage with him. Now that we're finally getting divorced, he makes me jump through all these hoops. Let him wait. Julian looked hesitant, but when she finally got up to leave, he relaxed. Chloe sat in her car, but she didn't start the engine. She didn't know what was wrong with her. This was what she had wanted for so long. She slammed her fist on the steering wheel in frustration. The image of Ethan's shaved head kept flashing in her mind, irritating her. She had tried to contact me after that day, but I didn't answer her calls, and my texts went unanswered. Even if she had wanted to apologize, my radio silence had probably angered her too much. Chloe turned the key and started driving towards City Hall. She decided that when she saw me, she would grab me by the collar and demand to know what was going on with his head. Could Julian have been right? Was he really going to divorce her 1 minute and join a monastery the next? She knew I had feelings for her, but she never thought I'd be crazy enough to use something like that to threaten her. She soon arrived at City Hall, but I was nowhere to be seen. Chloe waited, fuming, until the offices closed for the day. As dusk fell, there was still no sign of me. Looking at the now empty street, she let out a furious, bitter laugh and kicked her car's tire. Ethan Miller, you've really done it this time. At that very moment, doctors and nurses were rushing me into an operating room at the hospital. Leo, his face streaked with tears, clung to my hand. Ethan, I bought the ticket. You can go anywhere you want. You just have to pull through. You have to. You said there were so many things you still wanted to do, so many places you wanted to see. Wake up and I'll quit my job and go with you, okay? You have to wake up. Leo was sobbing, but I lay on the gurney, still and unresponsive. Leo, where's his family? We need a signature from his next of kin. Leo looked up, dazed, fresh tears streaming down his face. I'll call them right now. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his phone. The phone rang and rang, but no one picked up. Answer the phone, Chloe. He paced anxiously, calling again and again until finally he got a busy signal. His face went pale. Chloe had blocked my number. He gripped the phone, his eyes filled with despair. Chloe, he whispered, you're going to regret this. Meanwhile, Chloe was sitting on her sofa. Her phone sat on the coffee table in front of her. She watched my name flash on the screen as call after call came in, but she didn't move. Her gaze was distant as she swirled the wine in her glass. With her other hand, she picked up her phone and, without a moment's hesitation, blocked my number. Ethan had stood her up, leaving her waiting like an idiot for hours. His promise to free her after 5 tasks. She knew he was a liar. She should never have trusted him, and yet she'd played along with his stupid games for so long. The thought of Ethan, with his arrogant smirk, probably hiding somewhere and laughing at her, made her seethe with rage. He was probably only calling to gloat. Her eyes blazing with fury, Chloe picked up her phone and hurled it to the ground. When Julian arrived, this was the scene he walked in on. Chloe, her face a mask of pure rage. His heart skipped a beat. Chloe, did something happen? He asked cautiously, studying her expression. Ethan didn't show up. The smile on Julian's face froze. That explains it. Chloe narrowed her eyes. Explains what? Julian pursed his lips, feigning reluctance. Chloe, I don't want to meddle, but what Mr. Miller did this time was just too much. Did you know? A friend of mine just told me he hired some people to put on a show, claiming he was sick and needed surgery, and that they were trying to call you to get you to sign some forms. Did you get any calls? Chloe didn't answer, her gaze falling on the shattered remains of her phone on the floor. Julian followed her gaze. So it was true. Then, his face fell into an expression of sorrow. Chloe, I don't know why he enjoys tormenting you like this. Maybe he really doesn't want the divorce. Does he have feelings for you? And what about you? You've been married for 3 years, after all. Is it possible that you... Chloe clenched her fists, pulled Julian into a fierce embrace, and kissed him. Their kiss was passionate and deep. After a moment, Julian held her close. "Chloe, I love you. If you feel the same, I'm willing to be the other man, to be your secret." Chloe's eyes softened, and she looked at Julian with a tender, pained expression. "I won't let you be a secret. You will be my husband, and it will be perfectly legitimate." After Julian left, Chloe couldn't sit still. She immediately called her assistant on her work phone and summoned her to the house. "From now on, any project the Miller family is interested in, I want you to go after it with everything you've got. Spare no expense. I want it, and call every single one of their business partners. Tell them it's time to choose, the Vanderbilts or the Millers. Since the Millers want to play dirty, I don't have to be polite anymore." The assistant stood there, stunned, before finally interrupting. "But, Ms. Vanderbilt, the Miller family declared bankruptcy this morning, and old Mr. Miller was cremated a few days ago." "What?" Chloe froze. How could she not have known? Seeing her blank expression, the assistant explained helplessly, "You gave the order, Ms. Vanderbilt. No one in the company was to mention the Miller family, and we were to ignore all of their affairs. Besides, it's such huge news, your own father-in-law passing away. No one would have imagined you didn't already know." After her assistant left, Chloe sat on the sofa for a long time, trying to process the news. Because she despised me and my family, she had forbidden me from ever setting foot in her company, and had made it clear that the Miller family was never to benefit from their connection to the Vanderbilts. I had watched her give that order to her assistant and had sneered at her. "Don't be so sure, Chloe," I had said. "One day you might be on your knees, begging me to use your family's connections." The memory made her feel a complex mix of emotions. She didn't like me and she didn't like my family, but for something this big to happen, and for me to not say a word, was he trying to make her look cruel and heartless to the outside world? If that was his plan, he had seriously miscalculated. Her expression hardened. She picked up a new phone and dialed my number. It didn't ring for long before someone picked up. She didn't wait for the person on the other end to speak before launching into her tirade. "Ethan, you've really outdone yourself. Standing me up, making a fool of me. Was it fun? Are you enjoying this? I don't care about your family's problems, but you didn't even tell me your father died? Were you trying to make the Vanderbilts a laughingstock? I'll tell you the truth. I found that journal you keep locked up. I know you have feelings for me, but I don't like you. I'm disgusted by you. I loathe you and everyone in your pathetic family. It doesn't matter that you broke your promise. A lawsuit is just a minor inconvenience. You want to play games? Fine, I'll play. Let's see what you've got now that the Miller family name means nothing." When she finished, the other end of the line was eerily silent. Not even the sound of breathing. Chloe frowned. Just as she was about to speak again, the line went dead. She stared at the phone for a second, then angrily redialed, only to find the number was no longer in service. She was furious. She was about to have my location traced. He was asking for it. In the past, when I'd pushed her buttons like this, she would always retaliate in a way that left me unable to get out of bed for days. But now, Chloe froze. What was she thinking? The first method of punishment that came to her mind was to drag Ethan to bed. She felt like Ethan had driven her crazy. So when Julian invited her to an art exhibition overseas, she readily agreed. The gallery was filled with socialites and celebrities from all over the world. When they saw her with a man who wasn't Ethan, they exchanged knowing glances. Everyone knew that Chloe and Ethan were a miserable couple. Now that the Miller family had fallen and the Vanderbilts hadn't lifted a finger to help, it was clear just how deep their hatred ran. The social climbers in the room were already flocking to Julian, trying to curry favor. "Mr. Hayes, you and Ms. Vanderbilt make such a beautiful couple. Yes, I heard you two were together before. If it hadn't been for the Millers' interference, you'd be the one by her side now." A small smile played on Julian's lips, a thrill of pleasure running through him. "It's all Ethan's fault. I heard the Millers wanted him to marry some foreign woman, but he refused. He was the one who insisted on marrying Ms. Vanderbilt." "Really? But I thought they couldn't stand each other." The conversation shifted, and the group, now engrossed in this new gossip, completely ignored Julian. Hearing this, Julian's expression soured. He turned to leave, annoyed, only to find Chloe standing right behind him. He had no idea how long she'd been there. The women noticed her too and quickly tried to laugh it off. "Ms. Vanderbilt, Mr. Hayes, will leave you two to look around. We're just going to check out that section over there." They scurried away, but Chloe remained rooted to the spot. Julian forced a smile and took her hand. "When did you get here? Why didn't you say something?" Her expression was unreadable. I just got here. I was about to call your name when you turned around. Was I interrupting? No, they were just talking nonsense. Let's keep going. I heard there's a major piece being unveiled today. Chloe nodded, letting Julian lead her away. But her mind was reeling from what she had just overheard. So the Millers hadn't been the ones to initiate the marriage alliance. Ethan had been the one to ask for it. Why would he do that? Did he love her even before they were married? A familiar restlessness began to creep over her, an emotion she couldn't quite name. She'd been feeling it ever since she decided to go through with the divorce. She lost all interest in the exhibition. She was about to step outside for a cigarette when Julian pulled her in front of a painting, his face full of admiration. This artist is from back home, but he's famously reclusive. No one's ever seen him. Chloe, could you help me find him? Chloe frowned. Why? I want to be his apprentice. Everyone in the art world thinks he's an older man. If I could study under him, my career would skyrocket. Chloe nodded slowly. So it was about fame, not about art. Still, she nodded at him. Julian, delighted, kissed the corner of her mouth. A short distance away, several staff members were carefully carrying a large, covered painting. A crowd quickly gathered around it. Julian's eyes widened, and he pulled her toward the front of the crowd. The painting was draped in black cloth, and the curator standing beside it had a somber expression. The curator kept his eyes downcast, his expression unreadable. It is with great sadness that I must announce that this is the final work of the artist known as Aurora. A collective gasp went through the crowd, their eyes wide with shock. His final work? Has he passed away? So it's a posthumous piece. The value of his work is going to skyrocket. The curator didn't answer, his eyes filled with a deep sadness. He turned and slowly, reverently, lifted the black cloth. The crowd gasped again. The painting was of a woman's back at sunset, her shadow stretching long behind her. One hand was tucked into her pocket, the other held a cigarette. As the crowd murmured in appreciation of Aurora's skill, Julian noticed that the person beside him was trembling. Chloe? Chloe, what's wrong? Chloe was shaking uncontrollably, her jaw tight, her eyes fixed on the wrist of the woman in the painting. The red knotted cord around it was unmistakable. Her throat felt tight. She forced herself to look away from the painting and up at Julian, her expression frozen. Julian, I'm suddenly starving. I'm craving that soup you used to make for me when I was in the hospital after my accident. Julian paused for a second, then gave her a natural smile. Of course. It's been a while, though, so don't blame me if it's not as good as you remember. He turned back to the painting, his eyes fixed on it, but the smile on his face was a little strained. Chloe's hands, clenched into fists at her sides, were shaking. She had never had his soup. Julian was not the one who had taken care of her. Then who was? She was afraid to look, afraid of the answer that was screaming at her from the canvas, an answer she wasn't ready to face. After dropping Julian off at his hotel, Chloe rushed back to the gallery. She burst into the curator's office. The artist of that painting, where is he? I need to see him. The curator, after a moment of surprise, understood who she meant. He sighed heavily. I'm sorry, Ms. Vanderbilt. Aurora has passed away. Chloe scoffed. That's impossible. Is his last name Miller? The curator's eyes widened in shock. His reaction confirmed her suspicion, but it only raised more questions. She frowned. I have to talk to him. Arrange a meeting. The curator looked surprised. If you know him, Ms. Vanderbilt, why don't you contact him yourself? Chloe pressed her lips together. What could she say? That she couldn't get in touch with him? That he had blocked her number? The curator gave her an address and a phone number. She immediately booked a flight home, making up an excuse to leave Julian behind. She had a million questions she needed to ask me. She had stumbled into my art studio once, but back then, she hadn't cared. She'd looked down on me, calling me a cheap imitation of other artists, and had stood in the doorway, coldly remarking that my work was inferior to Julian's. I had shot back, if you're blind, you should see a doctor. Now, seeing the name Aurora, she knew instinctively that it was Ethan. The red cord in the painting, Julian had supposedly gotten it for her after her accident, a blessed charm from a temple on a mountain. But she had broken it. She had always believed it broke because she was being forced to marry me, a sign that she was being torn away from the man she truly loved. She had felt like a trapped animal with no way out. I, not understanding any of this, had foolishly gone to the same temple and gotten her an identical one. She had hated it, cutting the new cord to pieces right in front of me. She would never forget the look in my eyes when she did it. She knew she had gone too far, but she was too proud to apologize. The next morning, she woke up to find I had cut off a lock of her hair in retaliation. Following the address on the note, Chloe arrived, fully expecting me to answer the door. She had her sarcastic remarks all prepared. What kind of game was Ethan playing, making her jump through all these hoops? Was this all just a ploy to stop the divorce? To win her back? Just as the thought crossed her mind, the door opened. She stared at the man in front of her, momentarily stunned. "Who are you?" Leo Scott looked at her, his eyes as calm and still as a stagnant pond. "Who are you looking for?" Chloe glanced past him into the apartment. Seeing no one else, she frowned. "Sorry, I must have the wrong address." As she turned to leave, he stopped her. "Are you looking for Ethan Miller?" His words stopped her in her tracks. "You know him?" Leo didn't answer. Chloe studied the man in front of her. He lived in a modest apartment building, and his apartment was furnished simply. How would an ordinary person like this know Ethan? Chloe looked away and said politely, "I'm sorry, Ethan is my husband. I need to find him. Do you know where he is?" "Husband?" Leo repeated, his focus sharp. For some reason, Chloe felt a distinct hostility in the man's gaze. Figured that anyone who was friends with Ethan wouldn't be normal. Leo let out a small, humorless laugh. "If Ethan is your husband, why don't you just call him?" That question again. Chloe felt a flash of irritation. This man clearly had no idea how strained things were between her and Ethan. The way they fought, it wasn't unusual for them to go weeks without speaking. Her patience wore thin. "If you see him, just tell him I'm waiting for him at home." She turned to leave again. Seeing her go, Leo suddenly threw the door wide open. The sound of the door slamming against the wall made her jump. "Ms. Vanderbilt, you don't have to wait. Ethan isn't in Chicago." Chloe stared at him, stunned. "Where did he go?" Leo's eyes never left her face. He turned, went back into his apartment, and returned with a letter. "I don't know. He didn't tell me where he was going. He left this for you. I haven't opened it. Maybe it will tell you where he is." Chloe took the envelope, surprised. Who wrote letters anymore? She looked down at the letter, and was about to say thank you, but Leo had already shut the door in her face. Chloe scoffed. "Ethan, you certainly have a type when it comes to friends." She turned and walked out of the building, letter in hand. She didn't notice the pair of eyes watching her from a sixth-floor balcony as she walked away. Back in her car, Chloe eagerly tore open the letter. She expected it to contain some important information, an explanation about the red cord, or why he had broken his promise and stood her up. She opened the letter full of questions, but as she read it, her confusion turned to angry laughter. It wasn't a letter so much as a travel brochure. It went on and on about the beautiful mountains and clear waters of Asheville, calling it a natural retreat that could heal a body and soul damaged by her temper. Feeling like she'd been made a fool of yet again, she angrily crumpled the letter and threw it onto the passenger seat. She sped home, but before she got out of the car, she found herself, for some reason, picking up the crumpled letter. As if in a trance, she had her assistant book her a flight to Asheville. When she came to her senses, she told herself she was only doing this to finalize the divorce. Ethan had strung her along for a month with his 5 tasks. This was just her seeing it through to the end. On the flight to Asheville, Chloe, to her surprise, slept soundly. Before she left, she packed my letter and a freshly printed copy of the divorce agreement. She wanted to see me sign it with her own eyes. She wasn't searching blindly. My letter had been a detailed itinerary, things to do, places to eat, sights to see, and even a list of inns I had picked out. Chloe went to each one on the list, and finally found the inn where I had stayed. She knew it was the right one because of the large confession wall out front, where she saw my name written. A small smile touched her lips as she entered the inn, imagining the look of shock on my face when she found me. "Mr. Miller? Oh, he was here, but he's already gone." Gone. The words hit her like a punch to the gut, making her ears ring. She had come all this way, and he was already gone. "Yes, he's left. Here's your room key." She stared at the key, her brow furrowed, and took it. Since she was already there, she decided she might as well visit the places I had mentioned in my letter. It was as if she were following a travel guide I had written just for her, walking the same streets, eating at the same noodle shop, taking a boat tour to see the same river and mountains. Her restless heart began to calm. That evening, back at the inn, she watched a lively group at a nearby table, their laughter making her own solitude feel even more pronounced. For some reason, it made her think of all the times we had argued. The innkeeper brought her a bottle of wine. "You're a lot like that other gentleman," he said with a smile. Chloe scoffed. Her and Ethan alike? Seeing her disbelief, the innkeeper explained, he was just like you. Sat right there all alone, didn't say a word. Looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. I told him the confession wall out front works wonders. Just write your name and the name of the one you love, and you'll be together. Chloe's interest was piqued. Did he do it? The innkeeper nodded. He did, but he only wrote his own name. He said the person he loved had told him she could never love him back. The words hit Chloe like a physical blow. A dull, indescribable ache spread through her chest. For some reason, she felt a pang of sympathy for the man the innkeeper described. The realization came a moment later, and she wondered if she was going crazy. The next morning, Chloe checked out early and flew back to Chicago. Leo wasn't surprised to see her at his door again. Without a word, he handed her another letter. Seeing the rigid expression on her face, he sighed. I just got this. I don't have your number or address, so I had to wait for you to come to me. Hearing this, Chloe immediately gave him her contact information. But just as she took out her phone, a call came in from Julian. She didn't notice the way Leo's expression instantly hardened. She put her phone away and answered the call, a frown on her face. Chloe, I'm sick. Can you come be with me? Chloe seemed to consider it for a moment. Where are you? Julian gave her the address. After she hung up, she turned back to Leo, but he had already put his phone away. This time, the sneer on his face was undisguised. Ms. Vanderbilt, since you're so busy, why are you even looking for Ethan? Your first love is calling. Shouldn't you be rushing back to his side? He started to close the door. Chloe stuck her hand out to stop it. He didn't let up on the pressure, but she didn't cry out, even as the door pressed against her hand. You haven't given me your contact information. Leo looked into her eyes, then took out his phone and exchanged numbers with her. After leaving Leo's apartment, Chloe drove straight to the hospital. She needed to confront Julian, to confirm once and for all whether he had really been the one by her side after her accident. Julian had dressed carefully, waiting for her arrival, but the moment she walked in, she didn't even glance at him before launching into her questions. He was guilty, but he hid it behind tears. Chloe, I can't believe you don't trust me. If it wasn't me, who else could it have been? You were blind, but you weren't deaf. You said it yourself, you recognized my voice. Who would go to the trouble of imitating my voice just to take care of you? What would be the point? Unless, who do you wish it was, Chloe? Ethan? Chloe looked at him, her expression complicated. I'm sorry, Julian. I'm overthinking things. Julian hugged her tightly, a triumphant glint in his eyes. Some people were just that stupid. No matter what Ethan did, Chloe was still his for the taking. Chloe stayed with Julian all night, but the next morning, she rushed to the airport. She had thought about it all night. She still had to confront me. Was it fun, treating her like a fool? After she landed, she went to the second city mentioned in my letter, Savannah. The letter again listed an inn, but when the innkeeper told her I had already checked out, she was filled with a furious desire to find me and tear into me. She was starting to suspect that this was all an elaborate prank orchestrated by me and my friend. She angrily called Leo, but he was in surgery and didn't pick up. Fuming, she called her assistant and told her to track me down. She couldn't trust these letters anymore. She sat in a small courtyard, the gentle breeze calming her spirits. The air was filled with the soft southern drawl of people strolling along, taking pictures on the picturesque bridges. As she walked by, an old woman asked if she wanted her picture taken. Chloe wasn't interested in having her picture taken, but she was intrigued by one of the photos on display. How much for this one? I'll buy it. The old woman looked at her like she was crazy. I'm sorry, that's a customer's photo. It's not for sale. Even though it was only a picture of his back, Chloe transferred $1,000 to the woman. You misunderstand, she explained. That's my husband. I came here looking for him, but it seems he's already left. The old woman's face softened. Oh, so that's your husband. Well, you be good to him, young lady. He seemed like a very kind man. Chloe didn't say anything more, just clutched the photo in her hand as she walked back to the inn. Late that night, she sat outside, the photo of my back held between her fingers. Her mind drifted back to the first time we were together. It was the day she and Julian had broken up. She'd gotten drunk, not wanting to go home and face me, but her friend had misunderstood and sent her home anyway. In the middle of the night, her stomach was hurting, so I got up to make her some soup. She was so drunk, she mistook my back for Julian's. By the time she realized her mistake, it was too late, so she leaned into it, deliberately calling out Julian's name. She felt my body go rigid, saw the hot tears that welled in my eyes. Afterwards, my defenses went back up, and I mocked her coldly. Chloe, your skills are so bad, I wouldn't sleep with you again if you paid me. She hurt me, so I hurt her back with interest. That's just how we were. Even when I knew I was going too far, she would provoke me into being even crueler. Back in Chicago, Chloe didn't rush to find Leo. Instead, she waited for her assistant's report. Julian kept calling, and where she once would have been thrilled, she now felt only irritation. She told him she was on a business trip, but in reality, she was hiding out in the house she had shared with Ethan, until Leo called her. I've received the third letter. Chloe's expression was guarded. She didn't feel the same urgency to rush over as she had before. She was silent for a moment. I see. I'm in a meeting. I'll come get it when I'm done. Shortly after she hung up, there was a frantic knocking at her door. She frowned, a sense of dread washing over her. Then she saw the panicked look on her assistant's face. Ms. Vanderbilt, I found Mr. Miller. A muscle in Chloe's jaw twitched. Where? The cemetery. The phone slipped from her grasp and clattered to the floor. She stared, her eyes wide. This isn't something to joke about. Did Ethan put you up to this? Where is he? Take me to him. I want to see just how much he paid you to tell such a ridiculous lie. The assistant didn't move, simply handing Chloe a file. Ms. Vanderbilt, these are Mr. Miller's medical records. He had liver cancer. He was diagnosed over a month ago. Chloe staggered, nearly falling. Over a month ago? That was the day, the 99th time. The day she had paraded her lover in front of him, dressed in his pajamas, mocking him. What do you think? He's better in bed than you, isn't he? Ethan, if I'm not mistaken, this makes 99 times, doesn't it? And you still won't agree to a divorce. The memory came rushing back, sharp and clear. No wonder he had looked so pale. No wonder he had gotten so thin, his skin so sallow. And she had laughed at him, mocked him for it. A sharp pain pierced Chloe's chest, making it hard to breathe. She never imagined that hearing Ethan was dead would hurt so much. How could this be? Shouldn't she be happy? Her fists clenched. As her assistant started to speak again, she shoved her aside and ran out of the house. She drove to Leo's apartment building. Her gut told her he knew more. How could Ethan be dead? It wasn't possible. She knew. Leo was a nurse. He must have helped Ethan forge the medical records. It was another one of Ethan's games, another attempt to make her look like a fool. She pounded on Leo's door, and after a moment, it swung open. In stark contrast to her frantic energy, Leo was perfectly calm. She grabbed him by the collar. Tell me, where is he? Where is Ethan? Are you hiding him? What kind of sick game is this? How could he be dead? He can't be dead. Leo remained calm. He gently removed her hands from his shirt, turned, and retrieved the third letter. Seeing the letter, Chloe snatched it from his hand, tore it to pieces, and threw the scraps to the floor. Enough! Just tell me one thing. Is Ethan sick? Leo looked at her, at the way she couldn't even bring herself to say the word, dead, and found it almost laughable. No! Hearing this, Chloe's eyes shot to his, filled with a desperate hope. But his next words sent her plummeting into an abyss. He's not sick. He's dead. Do you understand? Ethan is dead. He pointed a long, slender finger at the scraps of paper on the floor, then looked at her with a sneer. Aren't you going to read it? Those are his last words to you. Her eyes followed his finger to the scattered pieces of paper, the writing on them still faintly visible. Chloe stumbled back. No, it's not true. Ethan, he's stronger than anyone. He couldn't be dead. Leo's eyes were bloodshot. He clenched his fists, then bent down and began to gather the scattered pieces of the letter. Without a word, he walked over to her and pressed the crumpled scraps into her hand. Read it. This time it's real. Then he turned and left. Her gaze was fixed on the scraps of paper in her hand, so she didn't fully register his words. This time it's real. What did that mean? When had it not been real? Chloe fled from Leo's apartment, the scraps of paper in her pocket burning like a hot coal against her skin. She emptied her pocket onto the table, but couldn't bring herself to touch the pieces. Her face was ashen. As night fell, she finally, with numb fingers, began to piece the letter back together. A hot tear fell, splashing onto the paper. She frantically tried to wipe it away, but more tears followed, soaking the fragile paper. She couldn't hold it in any longer. She broke down, sobbing. On the paper, in Ethan's shaky, almost illegible handwriting, were his last words. Chloe, you promised me 5 things, and you didn't manage to do a single one of them right. So, as punishment, you don't get a divorce. You get to be a widow. What do you think? Got something to say about that? Too bad you'll have to say it to my gravestone. If I had the choice, I wouldn't live this life over again. But at least I get to leave first. In the next life, I pray I never meet a heartless woman like you again. Chloe hadn't left the house in 7 days. A few days later, Leo showed up at her door. He looked at her haggard face, a cruel smile playing on his lips, and handed her a key. Go take a look. Maybe it will make you suffer even more. Chloe knew he was being cruel. She could see the malice in his eyes, but she took the key anyway. She went to the address Leo had given her to my secret studio. When she opened the door, the sight that greeted her left her frozen in the doorway. The room was filled with paintings, large and small, and every single one was of her. In the corner of the studio were photos, secretly taken, of the two of them together from the time after her accident, when she was blind and he was taking care of her. He had never even dared to show them to her. Her feet felt like they were made of lead. Her heart ached, a gnawing pain like 1,000 tiny bites. But her face was a mask of numb confusion. With trembling hands, she picked up a photo, her thumb stroking the image of Ethan's face. Her breathing grew ragged, her lungs burning as if they were about to burst. What was she going to do? She thought she might be in love with Ethan, and now he would never know. Empty wine bottles littered the floor, but Ethan's paintings were stacked neatly and carefully in a corner. Her hair was a mess, obscuring her eyes. She looked completely undone. She went to the kitchen for more wine, only to find she had drunk it all. She stumbled back into the living room, fumbled for her phone, and called her assistant to bring more. The doorbell rang a short while later. Thinking it was her assistant, she rushed to open it. But the next second, a man burst through the door and pulled her into a tight embrace. Chloe, why haven't you been answering my calls? You didn't reply to my texts, you didn't answer the door. I thought you were ignoring me. But the stench of stale alcohol and smoke clinging to her made him pull back. Seeing her cold, withdrawn expression, he pushed aside his confusion and cupped her pale face in his hands, his expression full of pity. Chloe, what's wrong? Are you sick? Let me take you to a doctor. He turned to get her coat, but his eyes fell on the stack of paintings in the corner. He stopped in his tracks, his eyes widening in delighted surprise. It was unmistakable. They were Aurora's. He excitedly rushed over and picked one up. When he saw that the subject of the painting was Chloe, his eyes widened even further. Chloe, you know Aurora? Why didn't you tell me? I get it. It's because of what I said at the gallery, isn't it? You found him for me. Chloe, you're amazing. I love you so much. And if he's still painting for you, that means he's not dead. I knew it. He must have faked his death to retire from the public eye. Chloe, I have to meet him. Take me to him. Chloe looked down at the hand gripping her arm and coldly shook it off. He's dead. Dead? How is that possible? At first, he'd thought they were new paintings. But as he looked through the stack, he could see that some of them were clearly years old. Chloe didn't answer. After a long moment of silence, she let out a cold, humorless laugh. Julian, was it really you by my side back then? Julian froze. Seeing the look in her eyes, his heart began to race, his nails digging into his palms. Chloe, why do you keep asking me that? Don't you believe me? What are you doubting? Or is it that you wish it had been someone else? I know. It was Ethan, wasn't it? He's been filling your head with lies. That bastard. It wasn't enough for him to steal you from me. Now he's trying to turn you against me even from the grave. He started to cry, crocodile tears streaming down his face as he watched her out of the corner of his eye. He expected her to rush to his side and comfort him, but she didn't move. He was so surprised, he forgot to keep crying. Chloe looked down, carefully rearranging the paintings he had disturbed. Chloe, her movements were slow, almost robotic, as she turned to face him. You wanted to meet Aurora, didn't you? I'll take you to him. Julian's heart leaped. He thought she believed him. He quickly followed her out the door. Chloe didn't say a word the entire drive. As the scenery grew more and more desolate, Julian began to feel a sense of unease. Chloe, why does Aurora live so far out of the way? Chloe kept her eyes on the road and didn't answer. Chloe, how much longer? He looked at her, at this cold, distant stranger, and felt a growing sense of dread. We're here, she said flatly. Julian looked at the isolated house ahead, a feeling of foreboding washing over him. As she unlocked the door, he grabbed her hand. Maybe this isn't a good idea. We're just showing up unannounced. I didn't even bring a gift. I brought something, she said, her voice still devoid of emotion. She went to the trunk and pulled out several large bags. Seeing how prepared she was, Julian relaxed. Chloe, you're so good to me. If he agrees to take me on as an apprentice, my career will be made. He was about to knock when he saw Chloe pull a key from her pocket. Before he could ask how she got a key, she was leading him inside. The large house was dark and silent. Not a single light was on. Julian reached for a light switch, but Chloe slapped his hand away. The force of the blow made him stumble, and he kicked over one of the bags she had brought in. He looked down. It was one of the black bags Chloe had carried in. Joss paper, spirit money for the dead, spilled out, a few of the bills landing on his shoes. His eyes widened as he finally took in his surroundings. The house was empty, and in the corner of the living room was a small, makeshift shrine, with a photograph, candles, and offerings. He turned to run, but Chloe was blocking the door. Chloe, what is this? What are you doing? She hadn't moved, but at the sight of him trying to flee, her eyes flickered open. You said you wanted to meet him, she sneered, then grabbed his arm and dragged him towards the shrine in the corner. Julian screamed, struggling so hard he lost a shoe. When he saw that the photograph on the shrine was of Ethan, his eyes widened in horror. How can it be him? Ethan's dead? He's really dead. He looked from the photo to Chloe, his face a mask of terror. Her face as pale as a ghost. Chloe slowly advanced on him. He trembled, scrambling backwards away from her. When his back hit the wall, she grabbed him by the hair and dragged him in front of Ethan's photograph. Then she slammed his head against the floor. He screamed in pain. When she let go, his forehead was bleeding. He was dazed, so terrified he couldn't even stand. Chloe found a small metal basin, placed it next to him, and lit the joss paper inside. She knelt, her movements numb and robotic, like a soulless doll. She carefully fed the spirit money into the flames. She needed to know where Ethan was buried. She missed him so much it kept her awake at night. She had asked her assistant, but her assistant had only received the news in an anonymous letter. The letter had contained a copy of his death certificate and his medical records. Other than a photo of a tombstone with only his name visible, there was no other information. Her assistant didn't know where he was buried. The news had struck Chloe like a bolt of lightning. But then she remembered the man who seemed bent on making her suffer. Leo Scott. He was Ethan's friend. He would know where he was buried. He might have even been the one to bury him. She rushed to Leo's apartment, only to find he had moved. His phone number and all other contact information had been changed. She had people looking for him, but they couldn't find a trace. She knew this was just another part of his revenge. Chloe, what did I do? Why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to you? He scrambled towards her, grabbing at her pant leg, but she kicked him away. Get away from me! Then she threw a handful of photos at him. You knew Ethan was sick, didn't you? She asked, her voice a raw, hoarse whisper. Julian's eyes widened. His first instinct was to lie, but the photos she had thrown at him clearly showed him at the hospital. He started to stammer out an explanation, but she cut him off. She lunged forward, her hands closing around his throat. She watched as his face slowly turned as white as her own. Tears streamed down her face as she began to laugh, a wild, terrifying sound. It's your fault. All your fault. You told me he was faking it. If it wasn't for you, I would have seen him one last time. He clawed at her hands, trying to break her grip, but then, just as suddenly, she let go. He scrambled away from her, cowering in the corner, gasping for breath, his eyes wide with terror. Seeing that she was just staring at Ethan's photo, her face streaked with silent tears, he grew bolder. You were going to kill me, for Ethan. Chloe, have you no conscience? So I wasn't there for you when you were blind. So what? You were the one who wronged me first. You promised you would marry me, but when your family forced me out of the country, what were you doing? You were bickering with Ethan. You said you hated him, but you never stopped talking about him. You said you loved me, but you just stood there and watched me leave. And then you marry him and sleep with half of Chicago, all in the name of loving me? Is that what you call love, Chloe? It's cheap. It's disgusting. He finished, his bravado quickly fading into fear, expecting her to lunge at him again. But her eyes never left Ethan's photograph. She picked up the photo, her fingers tracing the outline of his face. You're right, she said, her voice hollow. I don't love you. I love Ethan. Julian's pupils contracted. Before he could react, her cold gaze was on him again. Julian, you have to pay for what you've done. You can stay here and atone for your sins. Okay? She locked him in the house, taking his phone and all of his belongings. She left no food. Ignoring his screams, she locked the door behind her. Then she walked away, Chloe's phone was blowing up with calls from her assistant. When she finally answered, her assistant breathed a sigh of relief. Ms. Vanderbilt, thank God you answered. There's a major issue at the company that needs your immediate attention. Chloe didn't respond, instead giving a flat, emotionless order. Have a few cases of wine delivered to my house. Then she hung up and ignored the phone completely. She sealed the windows and drew the curtains, plunging the room into darkness. She clutched the pillow Ethan used to sleep on, greedily inhaling his lingering scent. But soon, she realized that even that last trace of him was fading. She finally broke, the grief she had been suppressing crashing over her like a tidal wave. She screamed his name, a raw, guttural sound of pure agony. More than anything in the world, she wished she could turn back time. It was dark by the time her assistant arrived. She knocked for a long time, but there was no answer. Her calls went straight to voicemail. A sense of dread washed over her, and she called a locksmith. The coppery smell of blood that hit her the moment the door opened made her stomach clench. The assistant rushed inside and found Chloe collapsed on the floor. When Chloe woke up, she was in a hospital bed. Ms. Vanderbilt, you can't keep drinking like this. Chloe ignored her, her free hand frantically searching her pockets. The red cord. Where's my red cord? Her eyes were wild. The next second, she ripped the 4 from her arm. Ms. Vanderbilt, please, you need to rest. What are you looking for? Just tell me. I'll find it for you. Chloe grabbed her assistant's arm, her grip like a vice. The red cord. Did you see it? The one that was cut into pieces. Ethan got it for me from the temple on the mountain. I found it in his drawer. I can't lose it. Help me find it, please. Her grip was so tight it left red marks on her assistant's arm. The assistant tried to hold her down, but Chloe shoved her away. The assistant said quickly, there was a lot of commotion when they brought you in. Could have fallen out on the way, or somewhere in the hospital. Don't worry, I'll go look for it. Let me just get the nurse to put your 4 back in. But the moment she finished speaking, Chloe shot up and bolted out of the room. Ms. Vanderbilt, you just had surgery. You can't be out of bed. Chloe ignored her, clutching her stomach as a sharp pain shot through her with every step, feeling as if her insides were being torn apart. She was sweating from the pain. The moment she stepped out of the elevator, she collapsed, hitting her head on the floor. Ms. Vanderbilt, her assistant, who had been right behind her, rushed to her side and helped her up, her expression a mixture of pity and frustration. Ms. Vanderbilt, more than any red cord, the company needs you right now. Please, you have to pull yourself together. Mr. Miller is gone. You have to let him go. He loved you so much. He wouldn't want to see you like this. Chloe's eyes widened. It was true. Ethan had loved her so much, and she had hurt him, again and again. She had even stood by and done nothing when his family was in trouble. She gasped for air, wiping the blood from her forehead with the back of her hand, and allowed her assistant to lead her back to her room. She began to cooperate with the doctors, taking her medicine, allowing them to treat her. Except for the fact that she couldn't sleep, she seemed almost normal. After she was discharged, she threw herself into her work, practically living at the office. The lights in her office were on late into the night. Her assistant watched her from the doorway. Since her return, Chloe had been eerily calm. She had acquired the remnants of the Miller Group and was pouring all of her best resources into rebuilding it. The Vanderbilt family demanded she change the company's name, that she put one of her cousins in charge. Without even blinking, Chloe had them all thrown out. For the sake of the Miller family, she had made many enemies, and now she had alienated her own family as well. The assistant shook her head and sighed. What's wrong? Still worrying about her? She seems to be over it. She's more ruthless and decisive than ever. The assistant looked back at Chloe, hunched over her desk. Haven't you noticed? There's an aura of death around her. Chloe's phone buzzed with birthday notifications. It was only then that she remembered it was her birthday. She felt like a machine, her mind numb and blank. Her fingers scrolled numbly through her phone, and somehow, she ended up on her old message thread with Ethan. June 20th, 2023, happy birthday, Chloe. June 20th, 2022, happy birthday, Chloe. The words on the screen seemed to leap out at her, like a ravenous beast. A chill ran through her, as if an invisible predator was tearing at her flesh, an unbearable pain shooting through her limbs. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably, and the phone slipped from her grasp, crashing to the floor. She didn't know if it was because Ethan knew her so well, knew she would never look at his messages, or if it was her own carelessness. She had never realized that every single year, Ethan had been the first person to wish her a happy birthday. A dull ache spread through her chest, and she clutched at her heart, struggling to breathe. Once she had composed herself, she grabbed her car keys and walked out of the office. The house was eerily silent in the dead of night. The moment she opened the door, the stench hit her. She didn't turn on the lights, just walked slowly over to Julian's body. He had starved to death. In his final, desperate moments, he had gnawed his own hands raw. He was curled into a fetal position, as if trying to ease the pain. The walls were covered in bloody scratches from his fingernails, a gruesome sight in the dim light. But Chloe felt no fear. She just looked down at the reeking corpse, her expression eerily calm. Her brow furrowed slightly. "You've made a mess," she said to the body. She rolled up her sleeves, filled a basin with water, and began to clean. By the time dawn broke, she had finished. She wiped the sweat from her brow, then picked up Ethan's photograph and gently kissed his lips. She let out a small, sad laugh. "Ethan, you infuriating man. You did so much for me. Why didn't you ever just tell me? People get presents on their birthday. You just sent a text. I know why. It's because I never even knew when your birthday was. Isn't it? That's why you never got me a gift. But I know now, Ethan. I know that day at the amusement park. It was your birthday. You wanted me to ride the Ferris wheel with you, and I called you childish and left you there alone. I'm such an asshole, aren't I? I bet you followed me, calling me an asshole under your breath." She sniffled, a tear rolling down her cheek and landing on the smiling face in the photograph. "You were right, Ethan. I am an asshole. Chloe didn't have a single photograph of me. Even this one, the one on the shrine, she had printed from an old news article." The tears came faster now, unstoppable. She sobbed, her mind filled with the image of Ethan's pale, drawn face after his diagnosis. It was around that time, she realized, that the ever-smiling Ethan had stopped smiling. He had asked her for 5 last things. The first, the charity gala. She had bought the painting he wanted and given it to Julian. The second, Aspen. She had left him at the gate to go meet Julian. The third, he had asked her to stay. She had, reluctantly, all the while cursing him under her breath. The fourth, the amusement park. She had been impatient and cold, and had ignored his one simple request. The fifth, he had just wanted her to cook him a meal, and she had invited Julian. Even now, she could still see the look of disappointment in my eyes. The memory was a knife twisting in her gut. She hadn't done a single one of them right. "Ethan, let me get revenge for you, okay?" she whispered. Then she picked up an empty wine bottle and smashed it against her own head. Blood streamed down her face, staining her white shirt crimson. She lay on the sofa, clutching my photograph, when her phone rang. "I'm sorry, Ms. Vanderbilt. The reward line has been ringing off the hook, but no one has the red cord." "I see." She closed her eyes, a fresh wave of pain washing over her. The next moment, she was on the phone with her assistant, booking a flight. If she couldn't find the original, she would go to the temple and get a new one. A few hours later, her plane landed. She traveled to the foot of the mountain where the temple was located. She had heard that the temple was at the summit, and that the master only granted audiences to those with sincere hearts and good karma. Without a word, she began the climb. She didn't stop, even with the bandage still wrapped around her head. Several times, the world swam before her eyes, but she forced herself to keep going. Most who made the pilgrimage were driven by some deep obsession, so her desperate determination didn't seem out of place. As the sun began to set, she finally reached the summit. The temple bells began to ring. She found a young monk and begged for an audience with the master. She expected her request to be granted, but instead, the young monk returned with a note. "Her karmic debt is too great, her obsession too strong. I will not see her." She stood there, stunned. As the young monk turned to leave, she pulled out her phone. "I have money. I can pay whatever you ask. All I want is a red cord to honor my late husband. I'm sorry. The master says he cannot grant your request." The original cord was earned through Mr. Miller's sincere devotion, a kowtow for every step he took up this mountain. Your connection to him in this life is over. You must let go. This obsession is not good for you or for him. With that, the young monk turned and walked away. Chloe's outstretched hand fell to her side. The last flicker of hope in her eyes died. She returned to Chicago dejected. The moment she stepped off the plane, she was surrounded by police. "Ms. Vanderbilt, we'd like to ask you some questions regarding the disappearance of Julian Hayes." Numbly, she followed them to the waiting police car. The media, tipped off by an anonymous source, swarmed her, cameras flashing. The next day, her face was on the front page of every newspaper. Chloe remained calm throughout the questioning. Without any concrete evidence, the police couldn't hold her. A week later, when her assistant came to pick her up, she was briefed on the fallout from the arrest. But all Chloe could think about were the master's words. She rubbed her tired temples. Didn't Ethan have a nephew he was close to? Her assistant, surprised, took a moment before nodding. Arrange for him to come to the office and prepare the paperwork to transfer the shares. Ms. Vanderbilt, you're giving him the Miller Group? Are you sure? We've invested almost everything into it. It would be like cutting off your own arm. Just do it. And have you found Leo Scott? Her voice was raw, but there was a flicker of hope in her eyes. Her assistant looked down. No, there's no record of him leaving the city. He must still be in Chicago. Keep looking. She was too exhausted to say more. She closed her bloodshot eyes. The news that Chloe was giving the Miller Group back to the Miller family sent shockwaves through the Vanderbilt clan. They all berated her, reminding her that her arrest had already brought enough scandal to the family name. Their angry voices buzzed in her ears. Stop it. The Vanderbilt name will be ruined by this ungrateful child. If we had known, we should have. Chloe slowly opened her eyes. Should have what? Hearing the ice in her voice, the man who had spoken fell silent, shrinking back into the crowd. Chloe let out a cold laugh. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Or do you just regret not bringing back the bastard son? Her father had an illegitimate son. The entire family had known except for her. When she had been blind after her accident, they had all schemed to have her removed from power. If it hadn't been for Ethan, for his constant care and support, they would have devoured her whole. The thought made her chest tighten with a familiar ache. Seeing their shocked faces, their surprise at her knowledge, only made her expression colder. Not only will I not give the Miller Group to a Vanderbilt, I'm kicking every last one of you parasites out. She had them all thrown out, and then she took back everything they had leached from the family over the years. She also had her assistant increase the reward for the red cord. Then, one night, she received a photo of a red cord, cut into several pieces. It was identical to the one she had described. Her assistant called the number immediately. When the person on the other end was not satisfied with the reward amount, the assistant offered more. But still, the person refused. Sir, what is it that you want? The man on the other end of the line let out a cold laugh. I want Chloe Vanderbilt to confess. A cold sweat broke out on the assistant's brow. She had a sinking feeling she knew who was on the other end of the line. She called Chloe immediately and explained the situation. The line was silent. Ms. Vanderbilt. When she didn't answer, the assistant pressed on. We don't even know if the photo is real. You can't just give in to him. He's clearly targeting you. The breathing on the other end of the line was so faint, she had to strain to hear it. Ms. Vanderbilt? Chloe's voice was a faint whisper. Give me his number. He used a burner phone. I already checked. I see. After she hung up, Chloe hugged the photograph of Ethan tightly to her chest. Everyone told her that time would heal all wounds, that what she felt for Ethan was just guilt, that in time she would be able to let it go. For a moment, she had wondered if they were right. After all, they had known each other for years, had fought for years. He was her husband. But as the days passed, her memories of him didn't fade. They grew sharper, more painful. She was learning that true love doesn't fade with time. It only grows deeper. The memories were etched into her very bones. A constant, self-inflicted torture. She loved Ethan. It was a truth that needed no proof. She knew what Leo wanted, her complete and utter ruin, and she would give it to him as long as he gave her back the red cord. The news of Chloe's confession broke the next day. She identified the body, going through the motions like a robot. The Vanderbilts were furious. With her out of the way, they could finally take control. They fanned the flames of the scandal, pouring money into making sure the story was everywhere. Through it all, Chloe remained impassive, her expression only changing when she made her one and only request. I've done what I promised. Now, where is Leo Scott? The day the news broke, Leo was already on his way to Chicago. Chloe refused to see anyone but him. Hearing this, a sneer spread across Leo's face. He looked at her through the glass, at her gaunt, broken form, a pale imitation of the vibrant woman she once was. Seeing her like this brought him a deep, satisfying pleasure. If he could have, he would have taken a picture to burn at Ethan's grave. Chloe looked at him, licking her dry, cracked lips. The red cord. Leo didn't say a word about the cord. Instead, he pulled a notebook from his bag. Chloe's eyes were glued to his hands. He pressed the notebook against the glass. What is this? She didn't understand. She wanted the red cord. He didn't speak, just opened the notebook for her to see. When she saw what was inside, her eyes widened. Every page was filled with a shaky, almost illegible scrawl. Leo didn't say a word, but his lips trembled. After a long moment, he spoke. Chloe, the letters you received, Ethan didn't write them. You have no idea how much pain he was in, how much he was suffering. But he still forced himself to write this. He wanted to do 10 things with you, but you said it was too many. You would only agree to 5. He wrote down the rest in this notebook. The letters you read, I copied them from here. Chloe stared at him, her eyes filling with tears. Was he in a lot of pain at the end? Leo didn't answer, just watched her. After a long moment, he flipped to another page and held the notebook up to the glass again. On the page, written in a hand that struggled to be neat, was a single sentence. If I ever get the chance, I'd like to see this with Chloe. It felt like her heart had been ripped open, and all the life was draining out of her. She broke down completely, pounding her fists against her own head. I love him. I love Ethan. I love him, she sobbed, a lost, helpless child. Anyone watching would have believed she truly loved him. But Leo just watched her for a long time and then he laughed. Chloe, do you really love Ethan? She nodded, her face contorted in agony. She did. Why had it taken her so long to realize it? Why had she been so stupid, so cruel to the man she loved? She hadn't even gotten to say goodbye. You're wrong, Chloe. You don't love him at all. That's not true. You don't know anything, she screamed at him. Why didn't you come find me? Why did you only call? You're the reason I missed my last chance to see him. Seeing her like this, Leo just sneered. Chloe, you say you love him, but you didn't even notice that the handwriting on that confession wall wasn't his. It was mine. And that photograph of his back? That was me too. Your love is shallow and selfish. You were never worthy of his. With that, he turned and walked away without a backward glance. Chloe stared after him, her eyes wide with a despair so profound it left her speechless. The police found Julian's body. The Hayes family, hoping to extort money from the Vanderbilts, went public with their grief, posting photos of their son's emaciated body online. The Vanderbilts, meanwhile, were busy disowning Chloe. The two families went to war in the media, and while the public ate up the drama, both of their businesses suffered. Chloe's sentence came down quickly. She didn't appeal. She just waited, a hollow shell of a person, for the day of her execution. She even felt a flicker of anticipation. Maybe she would see Ethan on the other side. She was almost impatient for it to come. Leo visited Ethan's grave again, bringing all of his favorite foods, the ones he hadn't been able to eat at the end. He smiled as he wiped the dust from the photograph on the headstone. Ethan, the old woman at the temple said, you've been reincarnated into a good family. You have loving parents this time, and a protective older sister. You're going to be so happy. And just like you wished, you'll never have to meet Chloe Vanderbilt again.